The Denon DHT-S316 is a 2.1 channel soundbar that outputs 160 watts of total power output. At the time of filming and in the UK it can be found for roughly £280, while in the US it can be found for roughly $300. In this review I'll be seeing how it compares to some of its competitors, including its slightly larger sibling the S517, and to see if it's actually worth its price tag. So to kick things off, let's talk about its design. And here the pretty slender soundbar and subwoofer's dimensions will be on your screen, so you can weigh it up for yourself. In my case, I've got it in front of a 55-inch TV on a cabinet. You can also wall mount the soundbar if you so wish. I also do like the materials that have been used on the soundbar, where you've got a fabric material towards the front, and that also includes on the subwoofer, with a plastic material towards the rear. You have also got a few physical buttons placed at the top of the soundbar, which are always appreciated. Better still, if you do want to adjust settings from afar, there's also a small little bundled remote. So moving swiftly on, let's talk about connectivity. And here you've got Bluetooth, although the lowest quality SBC codec is supported only, so therefore you want to use it sparingly. For example, if you've got friends or family who come over and just want to quickly pair up to the soundbar. Now it's worth noting over here that you do not have any sort of Wi-Fi support, so therefore you have not got any sort of higher fidelity playback over a wireless connection. Thankfully, of course, you can actually plug it in. And here you have got an auxiliary input for legacy devices, optical for older televisions, and then you've got the HDMI ARC standard, which also supports Dolby Digital and DTS decoding. Now this can be useful, for example, for watching terrestrial HD televisions, which will give you slightly better audio fidelity, and therefore the soundbar will be able to decode that. Now it's worth also highlighting over here that the soundbar does not have the newer eARC standard, although it's not really required because that is really only coming into fruition if you have the heightened metadata such as, let's say, Dolby Atmos or DTS:X. And yes, in case you're wondering, it will be compatible with every single TV out there, because even if you have a newer television with the eARC standard, it is backwards compatible with the ARC standard, which is present on the Denon S316. Now aside from all of this, let's get on to an audio demo, which I appreciate it's not going to be ideal over YouTube nor using my microphones, but I'll give you a little bit of taster. I'll be playing back a track from Priya J titled Like Me, and then I'll be going on to a piece to camera where I'll be presenting the Jeep Avenger on Totally EV. Make sure you check out the annotations on your screen to understand how the soundbar is actually operating. So to kick off, let's talk about its electric range, and here there is a 54 kilowatt hour battery pack, which is the same that will be found in the likes of the newer Peugeot E2008, the Citroën EC4 and the Vauxhall Mokka E, because all the vehicles share the same sort of platform, and there's also a heat pump that comes fitted as standard across the entire trim range. The manufacturer claims that you'll get roughly 249 miles on the WLTP test cycle. However, from my own mixed driving test, I actually netted a very respectable 200 to 220 miles. Now, it's not exactly an end-game small-sized electric SUV, but if you do look at some of its competitors, it doesn't actually fare too badly. It is worth considering that some of the vehicles that I just mentioned from the Stellantis group were tested with the older 50 kilowatt hour battery pack, so therefore you should be able to expect a little bit better electric range if you were to go for the newer models. So with the audio demos out of the way, let me get onto my subjective opinion, because there's only so much that you can attain via YouTube demo. Now to kick things off, I would like to talk about its sub-bass extension. And here it's very much present thanks to the fact you have got a dedicated subwoofer, which on its own outputs 80 watts of total power output. And therefore is very much appreciated in comparison to subwoofer-less soundbars, at least at this price point. For example, the Sonos Ray, or for example, the Samsung S61B or S60B. With that said, I don't think it quite competes with the likes of the Yamaha YAS-209, the Majority Sierra Plus, the JBL 2.1, or indeed the likes of the Samsung Q700C. Now, I appreciate some of these soundbars do come in at a little bit of an extra premium, but it is a worthwhile investment, specifically if low-end bass is one of your top priorities. For example, if you listen to a lot of EDM, D&B or R&B tracks or watch a lot of movies, then you might want to consider investing a little bit more in order for you to get a bit of that better low-end extension. Now, as for the mid-bass, however, I've got no real complaints. Yes, again, it's not going to compete with some of the larger soundbars out there, nor ones which come in at a bit more of that premium price tag, but the 316 actually does a decent job across the board and therefore gives you a pretty engaging experience, be it if you're listening to music or watching movies or even just watching the news. Now, when it comes to the overall mid-range, it is a little bit pushed back, specifically in terms of the lower mids, and therefore vocals don't really come out to the foreground. Now, you can change this via the dialogue enhancement, but I just don't really feel that it does a decent job. Yes, it will drown out all the other frequencies and therefore try and focus on the mids, and it does exactly what it says on the tin. However, when it comes to actually listening to said content, I just felt that it really just didn't give me a really good experience. In this respect, even when I was having my piece to camera on Totally EV, I just felt that the dialogue enhancement just took away from the rest of the video and therefore rest of the audio that I was able to experience with the dialogue enhancement disabled. And in this respect, I actually sided towards using the movie EQ in order for me to get the best of all worlds. In other words, getting a little bit more of that foreground in terms of for the vocals, while also still getting decent sound across the other frequency range. Now, speaking of which, you have also got the highs, and here they do extend relatively well, but they do sound a little bit rolled off at the top end, and I think that's just due to the overall compact form factor of the S316, and therefore can't quite, again, compete with larger soundbars out there, or for example, even all-in-one soundbars that really try and dedicate in terms of the mids and highs, and in this respect, the likes of the Sonos really comes to mind, and if that's one of your top priorities, then you might want to look at some of the alternatives instead. Now, as for the overall soundstage, you've got a decent instrument separation, and therefore the music that comes out from this is actually pretty good. You've got good sort of musicality and good tonality. However, the overall width and depth is pretty close, and that's just due to the fact of its size and the positioning of the audio drivers, which are pretty much all forward facing, and therefore you don't really get that sort of room filling experience or cinematic experience. Yet again, over here, some of its competitors do far better, although you'll probably have to shell out just a little bit more in order to get that better cinematic experience. Now, ultimately, what I'm trying to say over here is that the Denon DHT-S316 does do a decent job across the sound frequency range. I think most people who get this soundbar won't be left disappointed. But if you do look at some of the alternatives out there, or for example, even its sibling, the Denon DHT-S517, which doesn't cost all that more, at least at the time of filming, it's really hard to recommend the 316 given what else you can find out there in the market. Now, some of the soundbars I've referenced in this review and the ones I would recommend will be down in the description below for your own consideration, so make sure you check them out, and of course do let me know what you think of the 316 down in the comment section below and how you feel it compares with some of its main competitors. Now, it goes without saying that if you have enjoyed this detailed independent review, definitely do consider dropping a like, subscribing and hitting that bell notification. I can't stress it enough, it really does help the channel and allows me to continue delivering independent reviews like this one. As such, I've been Totally Dubbed, and I'll hopefully see you in the next one. Take care of yourselves, and goodbye.